Many would say that there's nothing creepy about Disney. Well, here are the top 15 creepiest Disney urban legends that'll scare your pants off. What's going down, Mouse Nation, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing the top 15 creepiest Disney urban legends that'll scare your pants off. And while some of these are less scary, the further down on the list we get, the creepier they'll be. So make sure you smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe. Also, make sure you let us know which of these urban legends is your favorite in the comments below. Number 15. The 1000th Happy Haunt. Ashes in the Haunted Mansion. We're gonna start with the Disney urban legend that we've all heard before. One that is in fact absolutely true. People have their ashes poured out within the Haunted Mansion in order to be the 1000th Happy Haunt. And I really want to start by pointing out that this is a really bad idea. So please don't do it. But it's such a problem that it even has a name. It's called a HEPA cleanup, which is named after the vacuum that they actually use in order to clean the ashes up. Now, not only is this illegal, but it's absolutely a bannable offense. The truth is that the Haunted Mansion isn't the only part of the park that ashes get spread. It's also known to happen throughout many other areas of the park. And it's no wonder that there's so many ghost sightings throughout Disney property. There have even been sightings of a young boy riding one of the doom buggies in the Haunted Mansion. He's known to stare back at you from behind one of the doom buggies as you sit restrained. I guess there really is room for one more. Number 14. Disneyland's Haunted Mansion hearse actually carried a body. The beautifully maintained hearse in front of the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland is said to have carried an actual dead body. More specifically, the body of Mormon patriarch Brigham Young from his funeral to his burial place in 1877. That brings an even more creepy aspect into the otherwise family-friendly ride. Number 13. Mind control through smell. We've all heard of the smellitzer, a device of various sizes that can be found throughout Disney parks, emitting different smells in order to create a more immersive environment. But what if I told you that they had a more sinister objective? Smells of popcorn and cotton candy in order to get you to open your wallets. Disney is literally controlling our behaviors through the use of our senses. Imagineers, you damn geniuses. So if you're suddenly craving some ice cream at a Disney park, it may not have been your idea after all. Number 12. Secret rooms in Disney. Most of them being backstage, cast member only areas. Utilidors, there's the famous Club 33 and many special interest lounges throughout the parks. There are also suites within the parks, one at Disneyland above the Pirates of the Caribbean, and then one in the Magic Kingdom inside of Cinderella's castle. But there are darker rumors of areas throughout the parks as well. Secret rooms where Disney does dark experiments or pharmaceutical trials. Never-ending catacombs filled with darkness and despair. I'll just stick with the guest areas. Number 11. Nobody dies at Disney. Now, we all know that there have absolutely been deaths on Disney property. And sadly, accidents do happen. But there is an urban legend that states that Disney can legitimately claim that there have never been any deaths on Disney property. This legend suggests that no one has ever been declared dead on Disney property because Disney makes sure that people who've passed away are removed from their property before having them declared dead. All done just to keep their clean-cut and positive image. Dark. Number 10. The Skyway closed due to deaths. If you're old enough, you might remember Disneyland Skyway flying high above the Disneyland park. This urban legend states that the ride was closed after a series of guests fell from the ride to their death. And though there are no actual records of any guests dying from falling from this attraction, the legend takes a step further, claiming that Disney paid these families to cover the deaths up. The only actual record of anyone jumping off the ride is that of 30-year-old Randall Charles. on the morning of April 17th, 1994, jumped from the ride and fell 20 feet into a tree near the Alice in Wonderland attraction. There, he sustained minor injuries. Do you think there were more accidents? Let us know in the comments below. Number 9. There's a dead body at Disneyland. This legend is a little less frightening, but creepy nonetheless. For this rumor, we go to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, where there is a plethora of skeletons throughout. This legend states that Imagineers used actual real bones from a UCLA medical school because fake bones didn't look real enough. Wow. Now supposedly those were removed and replaced with fake ones later in the years, but there's still one true skull remaining. The skull and crossbones behind the bed where this skeleton lies. But he's not the only one dead within the Pirates of the Caribbean. Number 8, a haunting in the Caribbean. Have you ever heard of George? Cast members of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride certainly have. And the story of George goes as follows. It's the 1970s, and the Magic Kingdom's clone of the Disneyland ride was under construction. And George was one of the welders who was working on this attraction. And he would die tragically. Now there are a few ways that the story differs here. Some say that he was crushed by a falling beam. Others say that he fell to his death from the burning city scene. Whatever way George passed away, he's now said to forever haunt the ride itself. From disembodied voices to ghostly footsteps, even phone calls from the unknown. And if you're really lucky, you'll get to see George for yourself. And of course, cast members make sure that they tell him good morning and good night. Because if they don't, they'll face the consequences. The ride will be riddled with hauntings and breakdowns throughout the day. Or sometimes something worse. Number 7. Someone hung themselves on It's a Small World. This legend was spread around the internet. Supposedly in 1999, a man and his family went to Disneyland. He said he was only 12 at the time, with his sister being 6 years old. They went to ride the classic Small World and absolutely loved it. When the ride was nearing its end, all the lights suddenly turned off, except for some in the ceiling above. The dolls all stopped moving as well, and cast members with red overalls came to help the passengers get out of the boats. They took them to exit the ride via the emergency exits. There was then a voice from the loudspeakers thanking the guests for riding the ride and telling them to enjoy their day, as well as to make sure that they follow the instructions of the cast members. The staff didn't give much information to what was going on, but there were police and an ambulance waiting outside the building. His mother took pictures throughout the incident, and when they got home, they developed the photos. This was one of the photos that she took. Looks like someone hanging from the rafters. How could they have gotten up there? Is it just a doll? What do you think? Number 6. Mr. One Way. There's a ghost that haunts the fan favorite ride, Space Mountain. Those who've had the pleasure of meeting him say that they met him in the single rider line, having a casual conversation. He'll chat about his day, and the more you and he have a discussion, the more you begin to realize that he isn't of your time. Sometimes a grown man, and sometimes a child, always with reddish hair, and almost always in the single rider line. He'll board your train, but he won't get off. Hence the name Mr. One Way. Some even link this legend to another legend where a man stands up on the ride and becomes decapitated. Now we're getting into the top 5, and these get really dark, so make sure you turn out your lights and enjoy. Number 5, the Monorail Ghost. What makes this one so creepy is that it's based on an absolutely true story. The tragic death of Thomas Cleveland. It was grad night, 1966. For those of you who don't know what grad night is, it's an annual tradition for high school students of Los Angeles area high schools to go and hang out all night long in a Disneyland park after their graduations. And Thomas decided to sneak in so that way he could hang out with his friends on grad night. And he decided that he'd do it by climbing over a fence. Well, after climbing this fence, he then had to climb over the monorail tracks to get down below. Security ran after him, trying to warn him to get down immediately. And then as the monorail came, he tried to duck below and hide beneath the track. But he instead got dragged about 20 feet, dying. And now he haunts the very spot of his death, many seeing a ghostly apparition running across the tracks at night. Number 4. Walt's final instructions. This is one of my absolute favorites that rarely gets talked about. The legend states that after Walt's death, he held a meeting with all of Disney's executives. He had each of them escorted to assigned seating arrangements, and they were shown a film. In this film, Walt would posthumously look in the direction of each of the executives as he spoke to them, calling each of them by name and detailing his expectations of them over the course of the next 5 years. Creepy. Number 3. The original Haunted Mansion was so scary, someone died. Another one of my personal favorite Disney urban legends is the legend of the original Haunted Mansion. The legend states that before the Haunted Mansion opened in 1969, there were some guests who were allowed to test out the ride. The ride was so terrifying that it caused a fatal heart attack in an elderly guest, prompting the ride to shut down immediately and be closed down for many years to be redesigned for a wider audience. Many point to the fact that the ride's exterior sat from 1963 until its opening date, August 9th, 1969. Number 2. Disney is part of the Illuminati. Is Disney an Illuminati tool used to control the masses? Why is there so much Illuminati imagery in their media? Well, you see, Walt was a 33-degree Freemason. And though Freemasons and the Illuminati are two totally different entities, many Freemasons are supposedly also part of the Illuminati. There are even rumors that Walt Disney was commissioned by the Illuminati to create mind control films for them. This began with Fantasia and Alice in Wonderland all the way to the films of today. Supposedly, the Illuminati uses Disney as a vehicle to normalize and promote their practices. And Disney is one of 6 companies that owns almost all media. And each of those companies is owned and operated by an Illuminati member. Now they do this in order to recruit and influence young lives. And even the main hub of Disney's parks are said to give a hint towards Disney's true motives. And yes, even the Disney name. And before we get to the number 1 spot, here are some honorable mentions. Walt Disney was cryogenically frozen. An all-villain theme park was once planned. Dolly's Dip, named after a young woman who was thrown from the Matterhorn and run over by a bobsled. And if you've made it this far, please consider subscribing, smashing that like button, and sharing this video with your friends. Number 1. Mowgli's Palace, abandoned by Disney. There's an abandoned Disney resort in Emerald Isle, North Carolina. This resort was called Mowgli's Palace, named after the Jungle Book and showcasing the best parts of all of Disney's current resorts. Locals were absolutely against every aspect of this resort. They hated the theming, and they hated that Disney owned so much of Emerald Isle. Disney, of course, opened the resort anyways, but then suddenly closed it down out of nowhere. Then Disney went on to scrub all records of this resort ever being open, or even existing. Both locals and former employees refused to talk about it. All that's known is that everyone got up and left, leaving everything exactly where it was. So what exactly happened? What made Disney employees leave in such a hurry? We may never know. And those were the top 15 creepiest Disney urban legends that'll scare your pants off. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. As always, I'm your host, Morty Mouse. I'll see you later, or I'll see you at another time.